part of the problem with dealing with questions of this type, in other words, issues related to ever advancing technology with legislation, is that legislation is a slow process that in the US of A has only become slower and more ossified as the years go by. We have a problem with gridlock. And on top of that, the legislation isn't always good legislation because we consistently have congressmen and senators voting on legislation that they have not read. They rely on staffers and so on. This is well known. The outlets, media outlets on the right and the left have both discussed this issue, so I don't think I'm on dangerous political ground if I say that we have a system that isn't very good at legislating quickly as necessary, and when it does, there are often significant flaws. So if you say, what other way out is there than legislation? So this is where I believe Judaic law has something to say. In other words, obviously, we are not going to adopt Judaic law here. But traditionally, many jurists have listened carefully, American jurists and legislators, to what other systems have to say. After all, American law is a combination of British law, a bit of Spanish law. There are some components of French law that have made their way into our system. The fact is that sometimes another system is something useful to say. And what that is, in this case, is that Judaic law essentially, in many, many cases, barring very specific biblical statements, as we'll see when we discuss privacy in a moment, Judaic law tends to actually work from very broad premises. When there is a law, as we'll see soon, about a wall between neighbors, we don't assume that this law is the totality of the law. We ask, what is the fundamental social, ethical, religious, spiritual, political goal of this law? And we assume that anything that fulfills that goal is automatically, inherently, intrinsically part of that law, and there's no need for new legislation. Talmudic law and subsequent Jewish law are built around ideas. And if you say, whoever heard of such a thing in American law? Well, first of all, the courts have flirted with such ideas, such as the discovery of the right to privacy, because all rights not enumerated are still reserved. But there's another aspect to all of this, which is that there was a tremendous, we're now hearing about payday loans, but there was a tremendous amount of abuse in all areas of commerce that the law did not deal with. So I'm sure everyone here is familiar with the UCC, which was a model legislation adopted, as far as I know, in various forms by all the states. And one of the things, as you probably know or remember from law school, the UCC very often, instead of giving a long list of regulations, it tells a story. It gives an example and gives us to understand that this example should be where the law is going. And this is sort of what Judaic law does all the time. And therefore, the question is not, is there legislation to cover this particular issue? The question is, what are the fundamental values and ideals that this law seeks to apply?